Hello, everybody, and welcome to Alternative Interactions and to
Into Meten and Plutonic Planes.
this is part four or 3B, but it's part four. We did the show and we realized it went far too long. So what we've decided to do is cut it in half, and so it'll be a two-parter, which I think is better and easier for everybody because what was it nearly going for 3 hours, didn't it? Something like that, Maten?
Hours almost. It's messed up, I know.
So yeah, what we're going to do. So this is an introduction to the fourth part, which will be the second part to three that we're doing, if that makes sense. And please enjoy the show. And hopefully we've stopped it at an appropriate point where it'll actually make some sense. So anything to add, Maten?
No, I think that's it. Enjoy the second part. And then we'll be doing another part in October, and we'll be examining what happened
Yes.
on the 21st eclipse.
Yeah, we will. We will. Hopefully by the beginning of October we'll have some clarity on the September month and a little bit more idea in October, though we have briefly looked at it. So thank you very much, everybody, and enjoy the show. Now, financially at the moment, and this is only my best guess, is I think we're going to see problems with the bond market because we're going to see that the emperor has no clothes. We're going to see the American dollar. Um, I think the American dollar's lost 97% of its purchasing power, hasn't it, from its inception in the 20s or something. So
Mhm.
so the dollar's worth virtually nothing. And what we're seeing across Europe, certainly, and I think America is now coming in, is debt bonds, the percentage or the cost of the debt bond, as in people won't buy them unless they're getting more interest. And we're currently on 5%, and 5% doesn't sound a lot, but you've got to bear in mind that just a few years ago, the debt bonds were at 0% or even 1%, and we're now at 5%. And that makes a huge difference on the amount of um, money these countries get back. And it also shows that those companies, mainly pension companies, pension funds, who are forced to buy these, don't want to buy them at the lower rate. They can see the volatility, they can see what's going on. So in real terms, um, I think somebody worked it out. I saw this today, yesterday. Somebody worked out that 8% of the purchasing power of the dollar has gone very, very recently this last year with inflation. And these companies are getting 5%. They're losing three, 4% every single time they buy these bonds. Why would you want to hold dollar bonds anymore? Why would you want to buy European bonds? British gilts. Gilts is what we call our bonds in the UK. Why would you want to be holding these for the long term? And countries are running out of money, so they're cashing some of them in to try and fund what they're trying to do. And it's a complete mess. But I also think that in the United Kingdom, and I think France is very, very similar to this as well at the moment, is the government is deliberately bankrupting the country. So when the Labour government took over, they had a 20 billion black hole, so they said. Now, that's complete rubbish because they can just print the money, they can create the money out of fresh air. There is no black hole. It's an illusionary amount, it's an illusional, you know. but there's a 20 billion black hole. Within a couple of years of a Labour government, or so, however long they've been in, we're now up to 50 billion. And in 1 month, they borrowed 16 billion recently. Now, as far as I'm concerned, that's money laundering because the Khazarian mafia in control at the moment know that they could be in big, big trouble. And so, what better way than to get their governments, who they control, to borrow all this money and funnel it into BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, whoever it is, to funnel that money into the NGOs, the secret bank accounts to keep them going. Because this is what we're talking about fundamentally, you know. This is the nefarious side of the monetary system that they're now bringing in, and they're doing. But we're also seeing the weaponization of these debt bonds from United Kingdom and Europe. So, for instance, the UK has just recently sent 1.2 billion pounds to the Ukraine from the profit from seized Russian debt bonds. And that's absolutely crazy. They have literally the bonds have made 1.2 billion, and the United Kingdom has sent that to Ukraine. Now we know Ukraine is a laundry for washing money. You know, didn't Zelensky just recently buy himself a wealth management a bank? Fundamentally, Zelensky just purchased a bank for himself because he's got so much money. He can't. They can't, flush or launder so much money that he's bought. I'm sure it's in France, a French bank he's bought. I mean, so and obviously the weaponization of the bonds in Russia means that the BRICS nations don't want to buy it anymore, and that's why we're seeing India. I mean, and again, a really good example is China. China had 3.2 trillion in American debt bonds a few years ago. They're now down to 750 billion. So they have sold, trillions of dollars. But what they've done is they've cashed it in and they've taken the gold and silver, or they've used those debt bonds to purchase Dore bars from around the world. You know what I mean? It really is teetering. But we've also got the duality of Trump. Now, Trump knows the dollar's in trouble, and Trump doesn't want to, in my opinion, Trump does not want to be the reserve currency anymore because he needs a weaker dollar so he can get the manufacturing going, so he can build out of the problem. So it works that he's demanding the Fed drop the rates, which they shouldn't be doing. In actual fact, they should be raising rates at the moment because of the unemployment and what's going on. But he's demanding they drop the rates, which is going to weaken the dollar. And he's playing this kind of game with China or the BRICS nations. And although he's blaming them for everything, he's actually using them to slowly debase the currency. So all this extra money is coming in from all these countries because they've had enough and they're selling their debt bonds back or giving their debt bonds back for goods, services, gold, silver, whatever. And so while they're doing that, he's weakening the dollar to the point where the dollar will then no longer be able to be the reserve currency and it will pop out. Now, at that point, you're going to see hyperinflation. The prices are going to start going up in America, big style. And Isabella, Tarot by Isabella, has seen that the world's going to start getting a universal basic income very soon. Now, in America, if you're getting that inflation and they've weakened the dollar, you're not going to be able to afford to live. So the American government are going to have to give you a universal basic income just to maintain the low standard of living that you currently have.
You
Because
know, like digital.
but she also sees it as not being um, Agenda 2030 or dark money. She sees it um, as a positive, as in something's going to change that's going to mean that this money um, is given freely without, you know, um, you don't have to have a digital ID, say for instance, to have the money. You don't have to do this. It's just going to go into your bank as it would normally, and then you can draw it as you would normally. It's going to be catch free. It's what she sees, and she sees that very very clearly, And I trust Isabella and what she sees. She's normally bang on. So we're seeing a very very complex, multi-dimensional, multifaceted system going on at the moment. Now, the other thing that we're seeing as well is central banks purchasing of gold. It's going through the roof. Now, um, I watched a show today. I think it was Monaco 64, um, and they were saying that deliveries from the COMEX, so this is physical gold deliveries, so far at this point in time now, is 100% up on what the total was last year already. So
What
there's
are deliveries from the COMEX? Is that purchases of gold and silver, or what is that?
COMEX is a gold and silver bullion store basically in America, which is connected to the LMB, London Metals Bullions Exchange, which is all kind of like the big official vaults and banks. So the London Metal Bullion Exchange was part of the Bank of England, but I think it's now been purchased by China. And the COMEX is the American version of that. And what we normally get is people buy gold, paper gold, and they don't get it delivered. And what I'm talking about is physical deliveries. So physical deliveries so far this year are up for gold. Am I right? 100%. And silver is 50% up. I could have got it the wrong way round. I do apologise. Could have got it the wrong way round. But either way, we've seen a massive increase in physical deliveries of gold. And the physical deliveries are going to billionaires and central banks. We've got Jeff Bezos selling billions of pounds worth of his shares. We're seeing the Apple guys selling their shares. We're seeing JP Morgan insiders selling their shares and cashing in. And what do you think these guys are buying with their money? Goes back to the baseball card analogy that the Meten just used. Do you think that they're putting the fiat currency that they know's worth nothing, it's hopium, into their bank vaults? Or do you think they're buying gold and silver, platinum, palladium potentially? Are they actually investing in gold miners? Actual investing in mines? Because remember these big boys, it's all very well and good having a nice stash of gold or a nice stash of silver, but where does it come from? And if you can control and you can start buying into where it comes from, you can then control and get even more gold and silver for very little money because you then control the source of the wealth. So the miners, and none of this is financial advice, of course. This is just what is going on, just what we're seeing. There's central banks. I want to say it's Venezuela, but it's not Venezuela. I forget which South American country this is now, but it's the first time they've bought gold in X amount of years, and they're buying gold. Very interesting as well in France. France is in financial crisis at the moment because Africa, and the African nations that were connected to France, have fundamentally kicked France out of their nations, removed them from their gold mines and their rare earth minerals that they were producing, and are now producing those minerals and actually buying directly from their own gold mines the gold and putting it into their own central banks. And France has lost 40% of its revenue overnight from Africa that it was stealing from Africa. So, you know, these are huge, huge changes going on, huge changes. And these energies we're talking about on the 21st and the 22nd, are we going to see people suddenly realizing what's going on with the gold and the silver? I mean, America has just reclassified silver as I want to say an essential mineral. That's not the right word, but it's not essential. It'll come to me in a minute.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Critical. That's the word,
critical.
critical. It's a critical mineral.
Silver.
Silver has just been classified by the American government as a critical mineral. That means America will be buying silver to physically hold and hoard because they realize if they don't have a stockpile of it and it all goes tits up, they can't make or manufacture anything. And that could be why we're seeing the silver price starting to creep up. And it is.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It definitely is. And what is it? It's like not even close. It's um reference to gold in terms of 1 to 15. Like it's not even close.
No, no. I mean,
Historical. You've mentioned this many times before.
through history, and we can go back 3,000 years. And even if you want to go back to the story of Judas and Jesus, Judas got paid in a ratio to gold to silver 15 to 1, right? So 15 silver coins was the equivalent to one gold coin. And it's only in the last 100 years or so that that's changed. And we are currently around 90 to 1, maybe a little bit higher, gold to silver ratio. Now, for 3,000 years, it's been 15 to 1. We're now at 90 to 1.
Doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. It doesn't. Silver comes out of the ground at 7 to 1 to gold. We have been 5 million ounces short of silver for the last 4 years to what's needed for manufacturing that's declared, let alone the industrial war complex that's opaque and no one knows what they use. And this is the shorts that the banks hold. So JP Morgan, HSBC, Citibank, other big banks, bullion banks, hold massive shorts of silver that they claim they have. And they'll sell you the paper derivative of that. But what's happening is the paper that they're selling, like on the Comex and such like, people are getting delivery. And they're scrabbling around because they don't physically have enough silver or gold at the moment. Trump's tariffed gold bars. He said he's going to do an executive order to untariff them. He never did the executive order.
He was going to do an executive order in order to what?
Untariff gold bars, bullion bars.
Ah,
But he didn't do it. And so no one's sending gold around or back to America because they don't know if it's going to be tariffed. And also they know that once America gets the gold, they ain't going to send it back because
why would they?
possession's 9/10 of the law. America wants as much gold as they can physically get hold of because when some
Well, they're
form of
not going to send it back. You mean they're not once they get it?
no,
Okay,
because America's going to keep whatever they got.
right.
So if you were a bullion bank and you and say based in Europe, in Switzerland, and you were going and you thought, well, they want X amount of gold, Well, if I send that gold to them, am I going to get tariffed on it? Will I get that money? And then once the America's got that gold, am I going to get it back? Because what happens, this is the crazy one, right? When banks get audited, they don't have the gold or the silver. They borrow the gold and the silver from a bullion bank and pay interest on the amount of gold or silver that they hold for the audit. And after the audit, they send the gold back and pay the amount. I think it's about 3% or 3.5% at the moment on silver. So if a bank's been audited, they will borrow gold or they'll borrow silver from another bank, pay interest on that, so that when somebody comes in and looks at their vaults, they've got physically got the stuff there. And as soon as the auditors go, they ship it back out to the original source, and then they then ship it straight back to the next bank, who they charge 2.5%, 3%, whatever it is, for their audit. So
So,
nobody actually knows how much silver and gold is held.
what's fascinating is you extend the metaphor to what we've been talking about before. If if silver coins are like little moons and gold coins are like little suns, it's like how much energy are these countries holding? We don't know the exchange of sunlight, the light rays of the moon and the sun. We can't see it clearly. We know it's changing hands, but it can't be solidified. It's life force energy. They're
Yeah.
trading and playing with life force energy.
Because all they're doing is juggling a reducing physical amount of material to the point when they throw something up, there's nothing left to throw up. And at that point, the system will collapse because at the point, and I mean, we nearly had it very, very recently in London with the LBMA, London Bullion Metals Exchange, or fundamentally, I would call it the Bank of England. The Bank of England has a turnaround of plus T plus two. So if you want to buy serious amounts of gold here, you go to the Bank of England or their bullion representative, LBMA, and you go to them and say, I want to buy, I don't know, £1 million worth of gold. Now, before, they would have goes, fine. That's T, the trade. Plus two is how many days it should take them to fulfill the order and get it to the stage to be shipped to you. Okay. The contract states very clearly that 14 days is the maximum that any trade can be. Otherwise, it's technically a default. They're currently running on 8 weeks. So if you buy £1 million worth of gold now, you'd have to wait 8 weeks for it to be delivered to you.
Wow.
Not 2 days that it should be, not 14 days, which is the maximum, 8 weeks. Now that tells me they don't have any. Well, that tells me they're having to beg and borrow, smelt stuff down into bars, because what we're talking about is the big bars here fundamentally. They're having to smelt bars down, beg, borrow, steal, and move it over. But at which point, who owns the gold? Because the gold has been purchased by the paper derivative market many, many times over. And so one piece of gold, you could have 5 different banks have a claim on that same one piece of gold. And those 5 different banks have sold that gold 50 times over.
Are they going to be able to do this anymore after a new financial system? I mean, that's all they know how to do.
No, no, because in 1971, when Tricky Dicky, um, what's his name? I only remember him as Tricky Dicky Nixon. There we go. um, when Nixon in 1971 took America off the gold standard, and he did, which is a default. America defaulted. So so the world reserve currency that was gold standard and every dollar was backed by gold in 1971 was pulled off the gold standard, became a fiat currency as in backed by nothing, and defaulted. Every nation defaulted. And I think the reason why he had to pull it off is because France sent their warships to America and said, we want our gold back. And they actually sent warships and said, if you don't give us the gold, we're going to start shelling America.
Wow.
And so they gave them the gold back, and then they realized they didn't have enough gold because the gold was no longer in America. Okay. Because in America, you can only sell a piece of gold 3 times. So one piece of gold can be sold 3 times in America. In Europe, there's no limit. So so what they did is they had France's gold, Germany's gold, everybody else's gold. They shipped it to London, and London lent it to all the bullion banks, lent it. They got audited to say they've got the gold. They then sold paper for that gold, and then the gold went back to the bullion places. And then when the countries demanded their gold back, they then had to give some of it back, and then the rest of it never got given back. And I think some cases it took some countries who have asked for it 6 or 7 years to get their gold back.
Wow.
Well, that means there's no gold, doesn't it? You know, Fort Knox, I think, is fundamentally empty because it all got sent. Now, this is the kicker, right? In Europe and in America, we don't have a culture of buying gold jewelry. We just don't. But in India and China, they do. And Thailand, they do. And in Vietnam, they do. And and my theory is that all the gold that was physically in Fort Knox that got shoved over to the United Kingdom and all the other countries, all the big bullion banks that was the paper derivatives were sold. Small amounts of that, and it only needed to be small amounts, was physically withdrawn, delivered, and turned into jewelry, which was sold to India and all these countries. And so all the American gold, all the English gold, all the gold they say they've got, which I don't think is there, is hanging round Indian ladies' necks at the moment and Chinese ladies' necks at the moment.
Wow. Fascinating.
And obviously the silver's been used for industrial uses as well as weapons, you know.
As well as jewelry too. And jewelers are going to get stuck because the higher silver and gold goes, the harder it's going to be to make casts, to make rings, to make pendants. Jewelry is going to become less utilized or less viable for people that create jewelry. Wow,
Yeah,
it's there's going to be a lot of shifts
yeah.
occurring.
But this is where it gets even better. America is thinking about, we believe, there's a lot of whispers about this one. America's thinking about revaluing gold. Now, believe it or not, the gold in Fort Knox is only, I think, $34.22 or something like that per ounce. So on the official books in America, their gold is valued at $34. I could be wrong there. Please Google it, but it ain't much more than that. So all the gold held in America that they claim they have got, and nobody knows if they do, is still at the price it was in 1971 or pre 1971 when they revalued it before then. Okay. Currently, gold is selling at what, $3,400
Mhm.
approximately.
And
So
check.
So if you check that out, I go on my story, right? So America has the ability to revalue its gold. Now, for every $4,000 they revalue the gold to, they will knock 1 trillion of their debts or off. So if they valued their gold at $24,000, they would wipe trillions of the debt off they have, making it more manageable. But that would then mean that the base amount that gold would ever be sold for again would be $24,000 an ounce. And gold would go beyond that price. And what have you got in India, China, Vietnam, Thailand? You've got hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of lovely ladies walking around or having great big chains full of gold, ounces and or grams and grams, ounces and ounces of gold. And as soon as you put gold to $24,000 an ounce, you're fundamentally making all these people who have gold jewelry and lots of it in these countries very, very rich overnight.
Gold is 3,601.90 today. Went up another 4% this week. And silver is at 41.27.
Yeah.
Went up another 7 to 8%. It's 0.7.
And if you Googled the value of gold in the Federal Reserve, or what value is gold in Federal Reserve, I'm sure it's something like $34.22 or 22,222 recurring
Oh, no. Where,
on
why is,
memory,
and why has that not been changed?
because I guess at the point at which you change it, you then devalue the American dollar.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense.
So if they made gold $24,000, that would fundamentally devalue overnight, crash the American dollar,
And then wouldn't they just print more money?
which creates more hyperinflation.
Right, right. And is
So,
that inflation? Does that create stagflation ultimately?
well, what Donald Trump's trying to get business and in industry back in. So if you had industry actually ready to go and start running, you would then be able to produce manufacture goods and sell them to the rest of the world at a very competitive price because of the weakness of the dollar, because of the inflation. But that then means that everybody in America is in trouble financially. And that also means that everybody in Europe is, because the European currencies are based on that, derivatives of the dollar.
So you're saying that because of that relationship to the dollar, Europe would also be experience a collapse at the same time. Would this mean all the other nations as well, like South America, Australia,
Well,
Haiti,
this is where the BRICS nations come in, isn't it? Because
right?
only the G8 or G7 countries would be affected by this, because they can only trade amongst themselves. Because if the BRICS nations are being held up by gold and real assets, oil, silver, titanium, whatever that has been agreed between the nations of the BRICS members, then they can trade between themselves, and they can do anyway now. But they've also allowed it that any country that's even not a BRICS nation, bar the G7, G8 countries, can trade within the BRICS nations as long as they use gold or silver or oil as payment, fundamentally. So that means that only the Western countries would collapse And the BRICS nations, although they'd have a big problem because a lot of their trading and a lot of the goods that they sold into Europe and America, that market would close and collapse, and it would obviously cause them big problems. They would still be able to trade with 80 or 90% of the rest of the world's population.
And they're also still using derivatives in their own country. They change with each other based on gold and silver, but amongst each other and their neighboring countries, they're still trading in derivatives.
Correct.
So it's not completely out of harm's way either.
No, not completely.
It's not harm's way because again, this is all being organized as such to occur.
Yes.
So what is then, what is they want, what do they want out of this kind of phoenixing, this kind of rebirth? What is the problem, reaction, solution? We know the problem is the overprinting of the money, derivative systems, or so they're saying, or so it's seeming with all the purchasing of gold and silver. So the reaction is what us demanding for a new system of commerce, a new financial way, a new
Yeah.
uh and then the solution is what then?
Well, the
Go
only
back,
real solution is going back to gold and silver.
but
'Cause-
not all countries can do this.
Well,
Some countries have enough metals, like Chile has copper, for example. You know what I
yes.
mean?
Yeah.
Some of the other South American countries have silver. Um, so it's varied. They all have valuable metals in different countries. And so some of these countries can do it partially or maybe even fully. So but that's a huge imbalance. That's like some of the countries of the world have, all the gold and silver, and the other countries have tourism. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so what does that mean for that's to me as I see it, like I don't see how there could actually be a non-derivative system because there's not something that each country shares. The imbalance with resources is so different that you need a mediatory tool.
Yeah.
And that's why we have the dollar, we have these currencies,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because silver and gold represent the ultimate value along with gold, oil, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
wheat, and other markets. But because there's an imbalance because of geography of different countries, you have this country has this, that country has that. So what's the monopoly board look like
Well,
after a financial reset, and what's the median of trade, after everyone, because it's not like there's going to be a redistribution and some Superman's going to go teach country and say, oh, here's your gold and silver, we're all balanced now, we all have the same amount, let's go around the monopoly board and play war again, or play this again, property ownership or not.
I mean, fundamentally, every single country in the world, apart from Canada, has gold. The central banks have gold. And in the short term, if gold's revalued by America at $24,000, every other country's gold's going to go up to that level or a higher level. But what we've got, how can I put this? There would have to be agreement between all the currencies in the world, all the countries in the world, of what they would peg their currencies to each other, and they would have to go from that because America will lose its reserve currency. That's coming without doubt. Trump doesn't want the reserve currency anymore. America is going soft default. They're going, going, going. It's going to go. So you have to get countries to sit around a table and agree fundamentally what their currencies are worth via what they've got in there. So if you've only got tourism, you're right, the currency is worth not a lot. But if you've got a gold mine, your currency is going to be worth more, or you have the ability to purchase more, and the people have the ability to have a better lifestyle. But that 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 kind of talk must have been going on within the BRICS nations already, because China and the yuan is backed by gold fundamentally. Now, China has just opened a bullion bank in Hong Kong, And so any country who trades BRICS nation purchases in yuan can go straight to Hong Kong bank they're going to set up in Hong Kong, and 1-to-1 ratio gold. So if you're trading with, if your tourism country has just done a trade with China and you've been paid, or you've been paid in yuan for something, you can go straight to Hong Kong with your yuan and exchange it for gold straight away, 1-to-1, on whatever their ratio they've decided it's going to be. But what China's also doing is they're about to open a bank in Saudi Arabia that's a bullion bank, which will be 1-to-1 with yuan, obviously the ratio that they set. So that means that China can go to Saudi Arabia and purchase as much oil as they want. Saudi Arabia will give it to them, and they're going to get paid in gold. Why do you need dollars anymore?
Let's look now when you're ready at the November or no, October 20
October. Yeah.
moon chart and see if there's any connection
Yeah,
with
yeah.
what's
See if we
occurring.
can see some kind of planetary or some kind of alignment thing that's
I can't see with my red glasses when I go to this. Mm.
vanity over function, I would say, my friend.
Oh, also the light. It's also I'm pulling in the frequency of the sun and Mars, right? With the red light. So it's my red light therapy for today. Okay.
Very nice too.
It's fine. November. Oh, October new moon.
Because don't forget, gold is sanction free. Silver is sanction free. Once you hold it in your hand, no other country can take it off you. Nobody can do anything to you. When you're holding bonds from another country, as we've seen, they can be sanctioned. So gold really is third party counter safe. It's got no counterparty issues, which is why I think initially they will have to go back to some kind of gold standard.
Fascinating. Ignore the transits on this because I just couldn't take it off once I put it on. But so this is the new moon. So
And this is the 21st of October.
yeah, and so we know with the new moon in September, we went over the new moons in August, September, and we see the progressive movement into conflict, right? So there can be change and
Yeah.
transformation with Pluto and Mars coming in September. So now we're looking at a time of the month where economic collapses have occurred all over this century. It's always been in October.
Yeah.
We know the planets again to go over it real quick. Let me grab my notes here. The sun stands for our leaders. The moon stands for our protectors. It's our guiding energy. Mercury stands for rebellions and protests. Venus is our currency, our food supply. Mars is our military, defense, security. Jupiter's our personal law, our courts, our judges. Saturn's our legislators, our the punishers of law, executioners. Uranus is the revolutionaries, the innovators, the inventors. Neptune is the navy, sea power. It's also the Plato of reality. It's how we create reality. And Pluto is the reformers, transformers, and destroyers of society and humans. It symbolizes death. And we've seen some symbolism of death here. So the outer planets are not going to be moved very far. But here now in October for this new moon, we see Saturn's in Pisces now. It's went back about 4 degrees into Pisces to complete what wasn't finished yet in the Piscean energy. So Piscean energy is still not yet purified, not till next February. And that's the spirit of man. Neptune is right there at the 0 degrees. So it's not in any particular plan of action. It's absent of degree. It's zero. So it's neither really Pisces nor Aries. And so it's kind of in this liminal zone. And then we see that Mars is conjunct Mercury exactly. So what a symbol for rebellion right there, with Mars being our need to make boundaries, our needs to direct our will, and right there next to Mercury, the emissary of the sun. So the message here, and that is an actual, it is in trine to Saturn. It's it's not that close, but it's building up towards an exact trine with Saturn. So it'll be entering reality. That'll be integrated into reality, that rebellion. So there's still a rebellion theme going here. Mars is still in Scorpio. And this new moon is occurring at 0 degrees Scorpio. And as me and Gary have been talking, Leo was the period of the summer. It's the period of the sun. It's masculine. It's our leaders shining, and with big words and big phrases on the stage of the world. Virgo's power returned to the people. And then Mars went into Libra, which is standing up for its rights, protests. And then as it goes into Scorpio, it's getting deeper into what can I trust? What's the truth? What's the nature of reality here? And we still have Mars in Scorpio now. Now it's together with the rebellion and Mercury. And the new beginning here is in Scorpio. So it's in the underworld. It's a remaking and reshaping of the soul and spirit of man. And it's exactly, let's see, no, it's not that. Let's see it's in opposition to Taurus 0 degrees. So not quite, and it's, not quite affecting that. It's almost in square to Jupiter. Jupiter has a applying square to this point of the new moon. So Jupiter is going to expand this investigation into the soul, spiritual nature of man under these changes. So it's going to be examined, and all that's not authentic, as usual, will be destroyed as Pluto and Mars are ruling this particular new moon. So is that clear? Ask me any questions,
Yeah,
Gary,
yeah,
if
yeah.
that's not.
No, I think what you just literally said, this last bit, was really interesting. You said that everything that's not authentic be destroyed. And we're dealing with a fiat currency that's not authentic.
Now we look to Venus. And so we see Venus is in Libra, 9 degrees, that 9 number again. And it's going to be passing that point. It's going to hit that new moon point. It would hit it about 20 days after. It'll hit that point. And of course, the moon and sun will moved on, but that's an imprint. Anytime you have a new moon or a full moon point, that's an imprint. So when Venus hits that energy will be amplified. But we're also looking for amplifications, of course, of the eclipse points for the remainder of the year, for the next year. And those eclipse points are 28 Virgo and 15 degrees Pisces. And so the north node is approaching that 15 degrees, approaching this eclipse that we're having Sunday, this big ending. And so that north node will renew that point. And we see the asteroid Requiem at 21 degrees, moving towards that 28, moving towards the September 21st eclipse imprint. And so we could see potentially more and more war and conflict in our movement towards a new financial system. And we could see the cost of it. The cost of it is always the same. It's always the end of something old and the beginning of something new. So it's a mess. There's always a mess that's made. And so there could be political deaths. There could be, induced other types of death. And it could be a time of struggle. But it's October, it's what we're used to. It's what has been on the world stage all century. when financial events occur, changes, when big financial changes occur, they occur in October. And so it's fascinating to see that Mars and Mercury, that messenger along a boundary and protest with the force of will of Mars, we see right there in Scorpio conjunct 20 degrees, while the moon and sun are, in this particular chart, this is maybe an hour after the new moon, so it's not entirely exact, but yeah, it's this is October, man. What more do you have? Or ask me any questions.
We're talking about an awful lot of energy there, aren't we? Which is we're looking at a bit of chaos, really, aren't we? In the kind of is a bit of a, how can I put it? If we're going to get some kind of, previously when we've had collapses, or like in 2008 when we had the collapse and everything else, right?
I'm gonna turn my screen off just for a minute. I'm
Yeah,
gonna do
yeah,
some
cool.
real quick
Yeah, yeah,
notes. So give me a second.
yeah. 2008 we've had like probably the biggest last collapse. Um, I think these dates were manufactured and contrived by the Khazarian mafia that controls the finances. I think they chose these dates because they were the how can I put it, the best astrologically for their purposes. Now I think the situation we've got coming up this time, I don't think they're in control of. Now they may try to control what's going on, but fundamentally this is a changing of the old guard from one thing to another. And I think that's what we're seeing fundamentally with all what I've been talking and babbling on about with the Western G8 countries collapsing, and the other countries, the BRICS nations, and those associated with the SCO Shanghai meeting that's just been going on in China. I think what we're seeing is a complete change of the power structure from one guard to another guard. Now, am I saying that the new system is going to be any better than the old system? Potentially, no, because it depends who's running it, who's behind in the background. But what I think we are going to see is the end of our current Rothschilds, JP Morgan, mafia, Rockefeller controlled system for some new kind of system or control mechanism by another group. It's almost as if we're witnessing a war between two factions,
Right, right. This
and
usually goes.
and one faction's definitely winning now. We can see clearly that the BRICS nations are winning from the Western nations. The West is falling. We're seeing the collapse of the West. And this is going to cause an awful lot of um, chaos, and chaos that's not. Um, they normally create a situation. So I think one of their mottos is, isn't it, order out of chaos. Okay, this is chaos, but I don't think they're going to be able to do the order. I don't think the controls there. Previously, when we've had financial crashes, they have been created. So what do I mean by this? Fiat currency lives off debt. So it'll only grow off debt. So you create a bubble of debt, a bubble of debt, a bubble of debt, a bubble of debt. And you create these great big bubbles. And then what they did to create these collapses is they withdrew the credit. They tightened the credit down so that the banks wouldn't lend any money. And that meant there was a lack of money to pay the interest or the usury of the debts, and it meant that people would fail. So, for a very simple explanation of this, you've got three people with £10 each, and they want to expand their money. So, a fourth person is introduced with £10, and he starts lending his money around. Then, all of a sudden, the fourth person wants his money back. And so these three people have got a share of that £10. So whoever's got the biggest share of the £10 will not go bankrupt. And then it's between the other two. And whoever's got the least amount will collapse, leaving just one or just two or the three. So out of that, we shrink the economy. But what that means is the banks or the banksters were able to take physical property off people, which is real money, reinflate the market again, and then lend the money again, so that the interest, the usury, could then be created by more debt and more debt and more debt and more debt. Hopefully, I explained that in a way that made sense. So, if you've only got £30 and it's gold backed, you got 30 quid. There's no usury; it's what it is. But when you introduce a fourth party that's got £10, who's lending that extra money on but charging interest, at some point that fourth party is going to call for his interest back. And out of those three people with the original £30, one of those is guaranteed to collapse, if not two of them, leaving only the bank and whoever's the strongest left. And they will then draw that money in, and then they'll create another bubble. And at the moment, the stock market is a bubble on top of a bubble on top of a bubble. And at some point, that bubble is going to pop. Now, before it's been done by the banksters on purpose, this time, I don't think they're in control of it. I think they're in for the ride. And I think it's been very clear whatever they do, they can't get out of this. Because as Meten and I spoke about previously before we came on here, they often contrive wars. Because wars are very good money makers, because you get destruction from war, and from the destruction from a major war means building costs, which means nations have to borrow money, and borrowing money is debt. And so you then create that debt bubble upon debt bubble upon debt bubble. And we haven't had a war for a very, very long time.
So I'm going to add into that. There's more patterns I'm seeing as I look at this chart. The first one is, if you notice, we have a grand water trine. Jupiter's in late Cancer. Mars and Mercury are in late Scorpio. And Saturn is in late Pisces, having retrograded back into Pisces. So this creates a grand water trine, which acts as a sort of like, it allows energy to happen really easily and swiftly without effort. It's like a slide. It's like you slide into something. And the players are Saturn, which gives the reality checks. What's the reality check here? What's really going on? Jupiter, which expands, and in Cancer, wants to expand protectiveness, the home, wants to take care of the home, expanding that moon energy. I want to take care of all these people or this country. We're going to take care of it, So, but also protection, let's hoard all the silver, right? Cancer would hoard silver, obviously. The moon is the ruler. And then we have Mars and Mercury in Scorpio, which is like a fixed water, which is a very powerful water sign. It's also about power. It's ruled by Pluto and Mars, so it is about the symbolic transformation of deaths of the old. So we have death, and that Jupiter, by the way, is opposing Pluto. It's moving towards an opposition with Pluto as it will apply to Leo 1 degree. It will be an exact opposition with Pluto, which is going to expand Pluto's energy And Pluto brings reformation and transformation and destruction. So this is another pivotal point of destruction of the old system. It's another layer of it. And it's literal death as well. And it's connected to it's part of a whole shift with this grand water trine, and they know about this date. I mean, Saturn's retrograding the Pisces, solidifying, and that Mars and Virgo, that Mars and Mercury could be a manipulated protest. You know what I mean? In
Yeah.
order to destroy whatever public places or cities need to be pushed out of the way and reformed. So it looks like, as Gary was saying, the slogan "Order out of chaos" is set with this particular grand trine right here. It looks like a nice orderly destruction. Well, it's never orderly, it's always messy, but it looks like an avenue for perfect destruction and recreation of something else. And it's very hidden. This is a very hidden chart. Sun in Scorpio, sun's in the underworld. It's not bright in the sky so we can all see like when it's in Leo. It's just taken its journey now into the underworld. The leaders are hidden, hiding and plotting and moving the puppets on the surface, on the stage of the world. And all that movement is there in the underworld with Mars and Mercury, and of course the emissary of Scorpio itself, Mars and Pluto, which is in Aquarius and stays there, causing destruction of old visions that are not authentic. And so, yeah, this is a powerful chart, man.
Yeah.
This carries on the themes of the new moon in September, and looks even like more intense for the next steps, the next layers of change and transformation.
Yeah. I see it as a building. The energies are building and building and building, and at some point the collapse will happen because we have geopolitical issues. I mean, what is it? The AFD in Germany, and I've got to be very careful here. Um, they're seven of the political opponents to the state have unalived themselves, which is a very, very, I mean, for seven political candidates to unalive in the run up to an election or some kind of voting process is very, very unusual, I would say. And I think we're seeing a lot of this kind of skullduggery and shenanigans in Europe at the moment. And sorry, my throat's just gone then. Probably because I was talking about something I shouldn't really be. And obviously we have a build up of this tension, this energy of the tension of the people, let alone the military system. And at some point, the two are going to combine, and we're going to see some very, very interesting periods of time. Now, is it going to collapse on this day? Who knows? But the energies are certainly showing the potentials and the possibilities far more than any chart we've seen so far. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean the real definition, I don't know if I said it correctly, with Mars and Mercury in Scorpio, Mercury being rebellion and Mars being military, and they're head to head, like right there together, ruled by the Mars is the ruler right there, so it has more power. And so that means violence rules the day. And with the moon also in Scorpio and the sun also there in new moon, creating a new vision, this time in the underworld, of what work has to be done. what's going to be destroyed in the underworld will reflect in the outer world. And so something is going on behind the scenes in this chart, and something's being set up. And the Pluto-Jupiter opposition is not yet. It won't happen until about 6 days later. So if anything, is a week after this chart, we'll start to see the real explosions or fireworks of
Yeah,
what's occurring, or not see again. Like, so the leaders are hidden, a lot's hidden in Scorpio, but we may not see who's responsible, but we'll see it occurring. And then I forgot to mention our finances, that's Venus. And so Venus is in Libra, there 9 degrees, but it's not far from a recent opposition with the Aries vortex. And that signifies the establishment of a new way of the finances, because the Aries vortex is a vortex. It's the new, it is the new vision. And Venus in opposition to that means Venus has to deal with the opposition of that vortex and come into agreement with it and be transformed by it. And so it's this chart's really explanatory. It's really showing a lot.
yeah, yeah. And
And
again, you know, this is kind of our September look at the finances and what's going on and the shenanigans and the build up of what could be. And I think the closer we get to this period, we will actually be able to see certain signs potentially, But again, a lot of this will be hidden. So on a Friday, the banks will shut, and on the Monday, they won't open again. And that's how it's going to be. Because if they're going to have any form of control, they're going to make sure that over the weekend, when the banks are shut to the people, that they remove and do as much as they can in the background before it's obvious what's going on.
you say a Monday, so now I'm looking at the month of October, and a Monday would be this particular new moon is going to be on, oh, when I put it on display, I can never see the date on top. So give me a second. So this October new moon is occurring. Oh my gosh, I can't see it. Was it the 21st?
21st. Yeah, that was the 21st
21st
chart, that one.
Tuesday. So Monday would be the 20th. And then another Monday would be the 27th. And another
Well,
Monday would be the
the
13th.
27th, 2 and 7, 9.
Yeah, the 9, yeah. That's possible.
Who knows?
Yeah, we don't really know, but there's always some numerology to throw in. Yeah, so this is all very potential for the month of October. So we're sharing this with you guys so you could see the machinations continuing to work on a new financial system and destruction of the old.
Yeah.
And none of us know exactly how that will look like. And again, because the most of the creation is occurring in the Aries vortex, full solidification may not even be till next spring. And even then, like a full one might not even be till 2030.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
all very gradual. This is all.
I mean, what I need to make very clear to everybody really is if we get a financial collapse of the kind I believe we're going to see this time, the end of the old guard, there's not going to be a solution a week later, 2 weeks later, 2 months later. This could go on for 18 months, 2 years, 3 years potentially. This is going to take a long time to work its way out into a system that it really feels fluid and good, So it could be 2027 before we start to come out of what we're seeing. And 2027 seems to be a very important year on for many reasons currently. And if we go down now, it gives us that bit of time, that 12, 18 months maybe 2 years to get over this and to bring a new system in that works for everybody, and that proper, real clever people um, can work out what's going on for the best. We also have external forces coming in, I believe, that we can't conceive yet. And these external forces that look at my pendulum readings, look what I'm seeing, you know, multi-dimensional craft, what effect are they going to have? Who knows what's going on? But we have so much going on, let alone with just the finance at the moment, that it's virtually impossible to keep all the balls up in the air. And at the point in which one of those balls drops, it's going to affect every single ball that's up in the air. And that's the thing. You got anything else to add, Meten?
No, nothing else to add except maybe as we move on through the end of this year, just observe because none of this is like fully clear. These factions are warring with each other and attempting to create some order out of their own chaos that they're making. So it's not even exactly clear to us. But one thing that is clear is that the astrology seems to be showing that this solidification of the Aries vortex is creating a new way, and it's mirroring a new financial system that is mirroring like cryptocurrencies, gold, and silver. And if these have not been your values, it's time to relook at your value set and to have a reevaluation of it, because this is a new, it's not, these are not new things. I mean, maybe the cryptocurrency, but that's again, as Gary made clear in his older videos, those are derivatives of the moon and the sun, of gold and silver. So it's time to reevaluate how you invest, how you utilize your money, how you work, because this vision is an opportunity for us too. We're also creating our own new financial way. And that's just how we negotiate our energy. So we're creating a new way for ourselves to a new work for ourselves, new careers, new possibilities of making um, prosperity for ourselves with these derivatives of gold and silver, which is life force energy of the cosmos. And that's very powerful because that means that we're seeing things closer as they are, because we're all becoming aware of these like old systems based on derivatives and not real gold, real energy. Like these are all fraudulent old systems, not authentic representations of life force, which is what gold and silver is. So remember, they're creating their vision and we can observe it, but we've all got the Aries vortex in our chart. So there's somewhere there where we're all creating our own, honing our own vision and making it clear. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share, man. That's it. What
Yeah.
about you?
No, no, no. I, I think we've covered the charts. I've rambled on far too much about sociological stuff, and
I got
you
six
know,
hours, 6 or 7.
yeah, and everybody's brains probably melted and they've gone to sleep already. So, you know, it's interesting, and for those you've got to the end, you probably had to watch it in blocks. No problem. But thank you very much for watching, everybody. Thank you, Meten, for your charts, and yeah, we'll wait and see. But September, we've got an awful lot happening, and we've got some really interesting stuff building on the 21st and 22nd for sure. And this is going to be key, so this is going to be the springboard almost to what's coming, I feel.
And Gary and I will try to do another video after the fall equinox, after the eclipse, after the dust settles sometime in October,
Yeah,
so we can kind of relook at the October new moon and then perhaps look at some charts for November and December.
yeah,
November will be Mercury retrograde, so it'll be an interesting segue into what happens in December.
Well, if we're in the Mercury retrograde, that could be because we're in a financial retrograde, and everything's up in the air. Who knows?
We'll see. We'll see.
Thank you very much, Meten. You're a star. It's been brilliant and good stuff.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys on the next one.
Bye, guys. Thank you very much. Bye, everyone.